Let's bring in the CFL on TSN's Jim Barker for our weekly visit. And, Coach, thanks for joining us. Nice to see you as always. And of the 3 CFL games this weekend, you got your doubleheader tonight. Winnipeg at Hamilton, 2 hottest teams in the league. Calgary at BC, must win for the Stamps. All the games interlock and affect each other, Jim. And to me, I don't like it because I don't like math. But I bet you love it.
Well, we're going in week 16. Every team's got 3 games left. Maybe Calgary's got 4, but the rest have 3. And every team is still involved in the playoffs. Every team is mathematically capable. Now, can Calgary beat BC and BC? If they do, all the attitudes change about Calgary. If they go into BC and win that game, one game tonight, now, oh, wow, maybe Calgary can actually make a run and do something decent. Now, I don't believe that's going to happen, but it's kind of like the Hamilton-Winnipeg game. If Hamilton wins that game, the East is in a rip-roaring race coming down the stretch, and Winnipeg is right in the middle because all 3 of their games they have left are Hamilton, Hamilton, Toronto, Montreal, 1, 2, 3. So they'll play a big factor in who wins the East, who finishes second, who finishes third in the East. So, again, Hamilton winning that throws that thing up into anything can happen kind of thing. And I love that. I love the fact that, when these teams that aren't supposed to win, all it does is create more intrigue in the league, more teams still involved in the race. And this weekend, it's going to be a telltale. I mean, it's that first game, that Winnipeg game. I just heard your last guest, who obviously was wearing Winnipeg garb and is a Winnipeg fan and sounded like a Winnipeg fan, and that's great. And I kind of agree with him in this one. They haven't won there since 2017, and one team's on a 7-game winning streak, one team's on a 4-game winning streak. The problem for Hamilton, they're just not as deep as Winnipeg, and they lose Shamar Bridges and Greg Bell tonight. And I think that's 2 big losses for them. It is tough for Winnipeg going into Tim Hortons, but I think that's a big loss for Hamilton to lose those 2 for this game. If Zach Collaros plays the way Zach Collaros played last week, 6 touchdown passes, he played like MOP Zach Collaros. If he does that these last 3 games coming down the stretch, and he plays that way in all of them, you got to talk about him as MOP. I mean, the bottom line is his team will be close to having the best record in the league. They'll have been on a run at the most important time of the year, winning 7 in a row now. It's no different than what happened with Montreal last year. So you take his 0-4 start and you say, okay, well, he's made amends for that and done, taking this team forward. So again, it's so early. This is such a weird. We talked about the MOP last week on your show, and how I just had the big question about Bo Levi, because right now he's playing MOP. To me, the 2 best quarterbacks in the league right now are playing tonight. I just think the 2 hottest quarterbacks in the league are playing tonight in that game. And should Bo Levi beat Zach, then I think he's got to be, if they can continue and make the playoffs, because I'm a believer they've got to make the playoffs in order. I just don't like taking a quarterback whose team doesn't make the playoffs. But Zach playing like he did last week, they're not going to lose a lot of games. He played like Zach the MOP. It was a thing of beauty. I mean, gave Lawler balls he could catch, and Lawler, didn't disappoint. He was all the best receiver in the league last week. Nick Dembski, again, he gave him a chance, made big plays. So when that team gets going on all cylinders, they're very difficult. They're playing solid, very good defense. So again, is Winnipeg the team to beat in this thing? I would say right now they are.
Oh, sure, because they've won 7 in a row. But let me ask you this. Bo is leading the league in passing, as you said. Very good chance he'll win most outstanding player. I don't have a problem with that if he's the most outstanding player. I don't get why everybody else does. McLeod Bethel Thompson's 3rd in passing in the CFL, Jim. And they got 5 wins. So is this a sign of something, or is it just an oddity? It doesn't make sense, but it is what it is.
It's pretty amazing. I don't know if you watched Kirk Cousins last night, but
Oh,
watching
yeah.
Kirk Cousins, watching him last night, made me think of our season this year in the CFL and how quarterbacks kind of stood up this year in the CFL. And the quarterback play has been very strong, which makes for great games. Kirk Cousins, he played great in that. Baker Mayfield, he played great in that. Those two guys played great. And what do they get? A CFL style game, 36-30, right down to overtime, and just a spectacular football game. And I had never seen Kirk Cousins play like that. Now, I've never been a huge guy that follows him or any, but I've never seen him throw the ball with that kind of authority and that kind of knowledge, and give Zach Robinson, their first-year coordinator. I mean, former Oklahoma, I remember him as an Oklahoma State quarterback, comes out of, from Sean McVay in L.A., and for the Falcons, he's got that team rolling, and he's got Kirk Cousins playing at a level he hasn't played at. And that's what happened in our league this year. I just think quarterbacks played at a higher level all the way across the league. And that's what made the game so phenomenal this year. And now you've got Bo Levi Mitchell, who basically we haven't really seen like this since 2018, playing Zach Collaros, who last week played like the MOP that he's been, 2 of the last 3 years. So it's just exciting stuff.
Oh, sure. And you're a football guy, so you follow all leagues. Shoot, Pop Warner probably all the way up to the NFL. I want your take on this. You look at the LA Rams, who really can't get out of their own way after winning a Super Bowl just 3 years ago, right? They've struggled since. Whereas you got the Chiefs going after 3 in a row. How come the Rams couldn't do it consistently if the Chiefs have? Obviously, they've constructed their roster differently.
Well, and I think the big difference is Matthew Stafford versus Patrick Mahomes. I mean, you're going to get that great year out of Stafford, which they got, just like Atlanta may get out of Cousins. But the year in, year out play, you're not getting that from Matthew Stafford. I just don't believe that. And you're going to get that from Patrick Mahomes. Zach Collaros this year, the first 4 or 5 games, he was not the Zach Collaros we all know. It would be like Patrick Mahomes coming out and being 0-4. You'd say, what is wrong there? But then if he went and ripped off 7 straight wins, you say, okay, Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. Well, that's what we can say right now about Zach Collaros. Zach Collaros is Zach Collaros based on that game last week. So the Rams that's an oddity. I mean, I'm following them closer because Nikola Kalinic is actually on their roster and playing every week, and so I follow them a little closer than before, and they just can't seem to put the whole thing together. They play great defense, don't play so great offense. Play pretty good offense, don't play as good a defense. And I don't know, there's just something that doesn't quite mesh with that team. And they get a lot of injuries. A lot of their key guys seem to get hurt. So I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
Kansas City and Winnipeg. I think if you look at those two franchises, they're very similar in terms of what they've done the last few years. Very similar.
Yeah, you can't argue with it. You can't argue with it for sure. And to be honest, we got a guy here, John Ohm in Winnipeg, who's a longtime viewer of ours. Great guy. I've met him. But he says Vernon Adams should go to the Riders, i.e. the Lions don't want him, so let's get him in Sask. Right. Your face just... What the hell is wrong with Trevor Harris? This is the thing about Riderville, Jim. You never coached there, but it drives you nuts. Trevor Harris is having almost an MOP season. He is. He's number 2 in completion percentage to Cody Fajardo. Trevor Harris is exceptional. Any losses aren't his fault. It's like, why can't you be happy with what you have? Rider fans, it drives a guy nuts.
He's 37 years old, 38, and I love Trevor. I think Trevor's a really solid player. Trevor needs to win some of these big games at the end. He's shown he can take teams down the field and score. He's got to do that. I mean, here we got 3 games left, and they're in a great position. They win out, they're going to finish second and host a playoff game. If you would have said this time of the year, you would have said that to Corey Mace, if you win your last 3 games, you control your destiny, he'd take it in a minute. So, again, can they go into Edmonton and beat Edmonton? Edmonton's another, what an enigma that is with the whole quarterback situation, and I think that all stems from what's happening with their ownership and their GM head coach thing. And so you're Jarius Jackson, and yeah, Trey Ford has shown some great things, but you don't make the playoffs, you're getting fired. That basically is, I believe, the mindset he has. I've been in that situation. I kind of know what that's like. So he's taking the guy that he thinks he can win this game and keep his job, another week. As long as they're in the playoff stuff, I mean, he's going to keep it till the end of the year. But my point is, if they don't make the playoffs, the chances of him keeping his job aren't great. And I think that's the way he's looking at it. And so he's playing that guy. Now, that completely hurts them with Trey Ford. Now, Trey Ford, what is he? Is he the guy that threw 5 interceptions or turned the ball over 5 times a couple weeks ago? And again, that's how Saskatchewan wins games. I know you're a reader of the notes. I'm sure you saw 25% of Saskatchewan's points this year have come off turnovers. So if you've got a quarterback that turns the ball over regularly, you're going to be in trouble against Saskatchewan because they're going to create the turnovers and then they convert them into points. So they're playing McLeod Bethel-Thompson that they feel like is going to take better care of the ball, not turn it over, and then let's see what happens. Let the game play out. And again, it makes for great debate as to will they lose Trey Ford. Again, I think it all comes down to the money. They pay him like a starter, he's going to stay there. They don't pay him like a starter, then it's going to be, is there any other team that's going to pay him like a starter? And, that's going to be an interesting off-season thing. Right now, they could play him, see what they have. But if they do that, they're risking him going back to 4 turnovers in the first half, which was the last time we saw him play, was when he turned the ball over. And they do that. Saskatchewan converts those, which they've done all year, into points. And now we're looking down the barrel of Saskatchewan not making the playoffs. Not Saskatchewan, Edmonton not making the playoffs, and Jarius and G-Roy both gone. So I think it's a fascinating dynamic. We get a lot of talk amongst media people about who should be playing and what. And if you haven't been fired, you don't get it. That's my opinion. If you haven't had your job on the line on each game, and his job is on the line each game, I believe, whether it's true or not, I believe he believes that. You're going to make decisions differently than if you're looking at the long-term good of the team.
Oh, boy. Are you ever right about that? When George Cortez was fired 1 year into a 4-year contract with the Ticats, just because Ken Austin became available, George was like, if I'd known my job was on the line, I would have done things differently. But right, it's exactly what you're saying. But, Chris Jones already got fired in Edmonton. Unless you know more than you probably do about what's going on up there. Somebody already got fired. So they want to fire Jarius Jackson? Do you know what I mean? Unless there's more there than what meets the eye.
He was an interim guy. I don't know that it's firing him. I think it's one of the things if the new owner comes in and he's going to make a decision. He's going to hire a president, and that president's either going to want to say, okay, we're going to start clean. Or, okay, we want to continue what's going on. Well, if they don't make the playoffs again, I don't know what's that, 2 or 3 years in a row that these guys have at least been there. G-Roy's been the assistant GM, and Jerry's has been the offensive coordinator. Again, I think a lot of it just depends on what they decide they want to do going forward to sell their fan base. Can they sell their fan base with things as is, just bring in a new president and everything else stays the same? I don't know.
Yeah, we're going to go a couple minutes long on this segment because we're enjoying it. And hey, we're a Western Canadian-based show. Let's just say what it is. The Stampeders fans are writing in here on YouTube. They're writing our text line. They want to point fingers and assign blame, which I get. I get. But is now the time to do that? Or do you have to wait for the train to go right off the tracks before you start the cleanup? Because they want to do it now, Coach.
Yeah, well, I was there, and I went through a 5-win season there. Now, I got fired for different reasons, I think. I cut the owner's son, and that's good to get you gone anytime. So, but we had only won 5 games, and then Matty came in and replaced me, and he won 4 games, and then the team got sold, and they completely, kind of like an Edmonton situation, just completely. I mean, it wasn't anything wrong Matt did. I left him something horrible, and that was just the nature of the way it was back then. Calgary is a place that, again, 2005 was my first year as the GM there, and they've made the playoffs every year since then. 2005 all the way till now, and if they don't make it, that's a hard thing to swallow. Calgary is an interesting market because I remember when I was coaching there. Now, a lot of it, I think, had to do with Frederick being the owner, but we were drawing 4,000 people, and I mean, McMahon Stadium was empty. That hasn't quite happened yet. And Jay McNeil, I give him a lot of credit. He's done a great job of keeping the fan base involved and fans involved. I think they're going to have to do something. I don't know what it is. Again, you go and make somebody a head coach GM, and they haven't done that before. It's hard. It's a difficult thing. And will they give Dave a chance to do one or the other? They did that with me. They said, you can do one or the other. And I fired myself as the coach and became the GM because both jobs was ridiculous. And I brought Scott Milanovich in. And they might do that with Dave, give him the opportunity to say, you want to coach, and we'll bring a GM in. Or we'll have somebody on staff. I don't know who on staff is there anymore. Brendan Mahoney or somebody like that. Or they say, he goes and becomes the GM, and they hire a new coach. And I don't know that they'll stay status quo because that's the way the whole league is. It's like you said, George Cortez, 1 year, Kent Austin becomes available, and boom, he's gone. Nothing George did. I mean, George, I remember that team, and George did a nice job. And George is a great football coach. Not a good one. He's a great football coach. So, again, it's one of those things that this league is funny that way, in that as coaches, you don't make as much money as they do at other places. And in the NFL, they make a ton of money, but for them to pay $3 million to get rid of somebody, they don't matter. In our league, it's even easier because the money isn't great. So you can make changes to please your fan base. The whole key in this league is what? Butts in the seats. Fans don't come out, and you're going to, you got to do something to create excitement with your club. And that's, again, that's kind of the key thing is in the CFL, to keeping your job.
A great chat, Jim. Thank you so much. We'll be watching this weekend. Appreciate the time.
Very good. Talk to you there, Rod.